Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. I am super excited to welcome back a multiple-time repeat guest and longtime friend, Michael Drew. Michael, thanks for coming back.
It is always a pleasure to be here, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Well, it is always great to have you. So let's catch up and tell everybody. So first of all, for people who haven't heard your previous episodes, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll talk about why you're coming back to talk about what's changed.
Cool. Yeah. So my background is in book publishing. I've been in publishing now it'll be 27 years in August. So for just a little bit of time. And I started off as a publisher. And then after being a publisher for about 5 years, I started my own marketing agency. And in my 27-year career, between being a publisher and owning my own marketing agency, we've promoted 131 consecutive books to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Success, and Business Week bestseller list. So it's a really fun thing that I love doing. One of our friends and one of my clients, Garrett Gunderson, likes to say that we're all born with a soul purpose, an SOUL purpose, and that soul purpose isn't given to us for us, but rather for our service of our fellow man. And my soul purpose is about voice. I help people find, test, and amplify voice. And so, I'm really proud of the work that we've done over the last 27 years. We've sold 65 million books. We've generated $3.85 billion in revenue for our clients. We've made a pretty good difference. So I'm excited. I know we've talked about it privately, but one of the things that excites me most is walking into a big event where one of my clients is speaking or has spoken, and hearing people talk about my client and the book that we did and the impact that it's made. It always warms my heart. So.
That is absolutely incredible and one heck of a track record. And obviously the number of books you've put on the New York Times the bestseller list has increased since the last time you were here in the last couple of years. So congratulations on that continued success.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what's changed in the world of publishing, which is what we're here to talk about today.
Absolutely. Well, so publishing is always changing, right? And technology does have an impact on that. One of the things that I do want to note, though, is that despite all of the technological changes in the space, that the brick and mortar stores still make up a majority of sales. More than 75% of books are still sold through the brick and mortar stores. And while a lot of folks focus on building online platforms and doing everything online, Amazon is singularly the largest retailer in the industry at about 16.6% of sales last year. But Barnes & Noble is at 11.1%, so about 30% lower than Amazon. But Amazon and all online sales make up just less than 25% of sales. So all of the collective brick and mortar stores still make up the majority of the sales. And we look at that also from a revenue standpoint. What I can tell you is that ebook volumes have gone up, but ebook prices have gone down. And so they sell about, for the top 250 books in a week, they're selling at about an equal rate, or a rate of 1.3 for every print book. But the revenue model is much lower. So the print books is still where they're making money. The retailers keep 50-60% of the revenue against the publishers. So But I think, one of the things that we were going into last time, that we were just working through, it has now been launched since June, I believe, of 24. Is So in actually in I guess to give context as a reminder, in November of 2023, Wall Street Journal stopped publishing their bestseller list, right? And so, in terms of the business space and the personal development space, that publication was ideal for those authors. And so, when that went away, it actually created a huge rift and impact on the industry. Authors no longer had the same incentives to want to drive sales through retailers because they're making less revenue per unit sold than to sell directly. And so what our solution was internally was to reach out to other publications to see if we could get them to run a bestseller list. We reached out to a number of publications, and many of them had interest at different levels. But ultimately, we were able to connect with Success Magazine, and we were able to convince them to do a bestseller list. So in June of last year, we launched the Success Bestseller List, and that's been expanding, and we're still working on getting it out into the market in terms of it being as popular as the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, Success has about a third of the circulation of Wall Street Journal, so it's not quite as big. But in terms of the things that we're building and doing with that list is really quite fun. So, as an example, we're doing book reviews for every book that makes the list. That's something that less than 1% of books on the New York Times or USA Today or formerly Wall Street Journal would have a book review. We're doing an executive book summary or Cliff Notes version for the books that make it on the list. And that's a new revenue source for publishers and authors, and of course for Success Magazine, which is a new thing because one of the reasons Wall Street Journal stopped publishing their list is because they didn't have any real way of monetizing it other than selling ads. Nobody was buying ads against it. And so what we're doing is building out a model that serves the reader, serves the author, serves the publisher, and serves the publication by creating more curation of content through reviews and executive book summary or cliff notes. And then the next thing we're doing is a book club. Now, to be part of the executive book summary and the book club, you're selected from the success list. If you don't make the success list, you're not going to make it on into those categories, right? And so that's something that we hope to have finalized with a really big thought leader, influencer, by the end of August, who will be the face of that book club, and we think will help us build it to 10 to 20,000 members pretty quickly. So there's that. And the final thing, and this was something that one of my clients, Marshall Goldsmith, who's the highest paid executive coach in the world, had suggested, but he and Books a Million and a couple of other people have asked Success to do a business and personal development book award of the year thing, like the Oscars, or the Grammys, and they and some other folks are willing to sponsor. So we're working on putting that together for next year as well. So that's for me kind of the big new exciting thing that I'm working on, is to really popularize and maximize the success list, and in the consideration of what is the purpose of a list, right? The list does not exist for the sake of existing. It exists as curation of content for the reader, and authors have benefit from that curation. But then you've got to consider the additional things that go out of it. If I'm a reader of a bestseller list, the objective of that list is to help me determine what books I should read. So if I'm a marketing director of a company, and Success has a marketing list, which we do, then that narrows it down to 10 books. But then the book reviews help me read and define if it's the right kind of content I'm looking for. And then the executive book summaries, if I really get into it, like, cool, I want to know more, but I don't have the time to spend 4, 6, or 8 hours to read the book. Now I can go into the 2 or 3 books I thought would work and get that content and get that benefit. And if one really, really works, then of course the full book or the book club makes a lot of sense.
And so that was a lot. So congratulations. I love the idea that you didn't just say, oh, the Wall Street Journal stopped publishing their list. Bummer, we'll just focus on everywhere else. I love that you said, hey, who else could we get to do this? and got Success Magazine. That is huge. So the first question I know our viewers and listeners are thinking is, how does one make it to the Success Bestseller List?
Great question. So the let's talk about bestseller lists generally. The historically, even the New York Times based their list based on sales. That's not true today. New York Times is it's only partially based on sales. It's a an editorial list, and they have five standards to qualify for the New York Times, and only one of which is sales. But the USA Today, formerly Wall Street Journal, and Success are still sales-based standards. Now, it's not just one for one sale because that would not be indicative of what's selling nationwide. And so what both USA Today and Success look for is having enough of the big box stores reporting sales and enough of the independent stores reporting sales, and then they look at volume, right? So it's you couldn't have 10,000 sales at Amazon and zero everywhere else and make the list. You need to have it Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Books a Million and Hudson's and Book People and Powell's and Tattered Cover and all the different places that books sell. You need to have those sales going through them. But if you've got enough reporting channels, then the next standard is volume based.
So is there, I know everybody used to ask you all the time, how many do I need to sell on what day or whatever to hit the list? So how does that work in terms of, is it a specific number? Can it be in a specific time frame, or does it now have to be like a range and it has to be over time?
So it still maintains what it's been, which is it's in a time frame. The lists are either a week long or a month long, right? So they're a monthly list. New York Times is a business monthly list. Most of them are weekly, and so it's Sunday through Saturday in a given week when the sales have to occur at the multiple different retailers. So Success has seven bestseller lists. USA Today has one. New York Times has 10. So depending on which list you're looking at, will determine the volume. So if we talk about USA Today as an example, USA Today has one list. But it's hardcover and paperback. It's fiction and nonfiction and children. It's one giant list of what's selling in the entire industry. And so their list is a top 150. They publish on Thursdays, they publish 50 in the USA Today, and they publish online the full 150 list. So it typically speaking to be between 51, depending on the week, between 51 and 150, you'd need about 5,000 sales roughly. And I say that because what we don't control is how well other books are going to sell, right? So there can be odd spikes in book sales that happen for no obvious reason. That happens from time to time. Different times of year see higher sales volume than others. As an example, people buy their summer reading in May. They don't really buy it in June, July, or August. They've already purchased it. So you have a big slowdown in volume of sales in the summer months. But come September again, September, October, we see a big volume increase in terms of the sales. So um, part of it is timing, right? You've got the time frame, let's call it a week, Sunday through Saturday, through enough retailers. And then the other is depending on the time of year will determine the volume. It's a little lower in the summer than 5,000 at USA Today, and it's in months like well, from Thanksgiving through the end of the year, book sales typically spike, and so it's a much higher number to make it during the holiday season. And in the categories where I work, personal development and business development, New Year's resolution is a very high spike in sales as well. So those are high times. Low times would be the summer, June, July to August. The problem with that is that while you can have you can have a lower volume to make the list, the ability to leverage that is much lower because people aren't watching TV and radio and media and consuming media in the same way in those same months. And so it's easier maybe to make the list, but also harder to leverage that success on the list, being on the list in the marketing that you're doing. So as a rule of thumb, 5,000 for USA Today. The success list has a general nonfiction list, it has a business list, it has a personal development list, and then it has four sub business lists. So it's got leadership and management, it's got marketing, sales, and advertising, it's got money and finances, and it's got women in business, right? And so those lists are necessarily lower sales volume to make those lists than it would to make the nonfiction, which would be the most for success, or then the business or the personal development lists. And so you're looking at about 3,500 sales for those four sub lists. You're looking around 5,000 for business and personal development. And the nonfiction is around, overall, is around 7,500 sales to make those lists.
Awesome. And then you mentioned the book club and other ways for success to monetize their list, which the Wall Street Journal didn't have, which might help our viewers and listeners who would want to advertise to the readers in those audiences. Is that are you allowed to talk about the things that are happening in terms of the advertising possibilities?
Well, let me tell you one of the things that should have real interest to your audience. With the Success Book Awards that we're putting together, what we're going to be doing per each of the 7 categories is taking the top 25 books by sales from the previous year, so this year 2025, and we're then going to put those on success.com. So if you're in the top 25, then you will automatically be qualified for the quarterfinals of that award ceremony. Once they're online, then to get to the semifinals, it's based on the top 10 per category voted books. And so that gives folks with audiences and platforms the opportunity to promote their book on Success, to be able to have the opportunity to be in the top 10. The final 5 and the winners will be chosen editorially by Success Magazine editorial department. But you can necessarily market your way into the first 2 areas of that award ceremony. You can say, "Hey, I was a Success quarterfinal finalist, or a semifinalist, or whatever else." And so that's going to be a really big opportunity. And because the lists are easier to make, this is one of the ways that we're promoting the list, right? Is I want to have the opportunity to qualify for the award. So let's really make sure that we're putting a lot of sales through, and that we're doing the things to make that success list, so we have that opportunity to be there. And then now that we're there, let's promote that we're there, which promotes the list, which helps us to build audience and traffic and generate revenue for Success, while helping the author. And by the way, still curating content for Success's audience and readers. And so to me, the things that we're doing in terms of that, just making the list is what you want to do, and then making the list at a higher level. But even with as I was mentioning before, the executive book summary or Cliff Notes, that's a revenue source, right? Because we're going to have to republish what's in the book, 10, 20, 30 pages long, distill it down, and then we're going to sell it to customers. And that means revenue back to the publisher and to the author. The only way that you get there, again, is by having your book appear on the list. And so we're attempting to do things that both support the readers of Success Magazine, but also then support the authors and the publishers who benefit from that as well. And so the book club, then finally, that is going to be more of an editorial decision for Success. What they're looking at are the books that they believe best meet the needs of their readers and of the partner who's going to come in and be the face of that book club. And so to a degree that all the books have to come from the Success Bestseller List, but that's going to be more of an editorial-based decision.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense and is very exciting. For our folks watching, listening, who either want to get their book onto the Success Bestseller List or who want to look at advertising opportunities, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Great question. So we have a website at bookretreat.com. We run a retreat or 2 per year in Guatemala, where we help folks write books. And we do so in a way that helps them build and grow their platform. I believe in the efficiency of content creation. So I've got an outlining process whereby at the end of the process, you end up with 16 chapters, 4 topics per chapter. You know, for each topic, what the big idea is, you know what the story is, you know what the nuts and bolts are, and you know what the hope is. And so what we do is we help folks chunk down their ideas into small bite-sized bits, because it's easy to create one small bit of content, but we suffer from analysis paralysis when we think about writing a 60,000 word book. But it's easy to say, cool, just write the big idea, just write the story, just write the nuts and bolts. And then we get into editing. As Hemingway said, there's no such thing as a good writer, or only a good editor. And so the idea is that in that event, we spend a week doing the detailed outline, and then it's so detailed that all they have to do is just flesh out all of those little parts over the next few weeks to be able to get it done. And so we've at bookretreat.com, for folks that want to write content, they would go there. We do discuss the bestseller list on there as well. Folks that are interested in becoming a Success or USA Today or New York Times bestseller, promoteabook.com. I try to keep it simple. Promote a book, or bookretreat.com, or the URLs that we use. But I would say really quick on the book retreat, when we have people write the books after the outlining is done, we have them do one of two things. We either have them sit in front of a camera and record themselves and create a podcast, which can then be transcribed. So you've got video, audio, written content, or we have them just write it out as blog posts, because that then allows them to publish those blog posts on their website and engage their audience and be able to get feedback, real life feedback about the content that would be going into the book, to help them determine what content to keep and not keep, and a really good way to engage an audience.
Awesome. Well, we know your time's incredibly valuable. We appreciate you coming back and giving us the update on the Success Book Bestseller Book List. This has been Seth Greene with Michael Drew. Michael, thanks again for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.